The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are talking about Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. And John, had you seen this one before and were you ready for these big swings that felt like nothing?
I have only seen bits of this one before, not the whole thing. And no, I wasn't really sure where this was going to go after the goofiness of part 6. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are definitely some big swings here. And the first appearance of Mr. Kane Hodder.
Exactly.
The man most associated with being Jason. And I can see why. He's great in this.
Yeah, absolutely. After part 6, after rewatching part 6 last time for the show, like I was kind of, even though I kind of knew where the franchise was going just from past experiences, but like I did come off of it with like a little bit more energy.
Oh, yeah.
I think that movie did give a little bit more energy to everything, whether you like it or not. It does have like a little bit more of a spryness to it.
Yes.
And so they went right into production with this one, just like every other single one that they do. And I believe this one, I don't know if it has the record, but it's got to have the record. But 6 months after pre-production began, it was in theaters. So
wow.
Again, I'm always shocked by that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. The
other fun trivia for this, for the year itself. So this came out in 1988, and that saw the release of Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Master, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, also the first Child's Play, Hellraiser 2, and Phantasm 2. So that's a stacked year.
That is a stacked year. I can't believe it took that long to make it. Well, I can't believe it took that long to make another Phantasm, but still, that's wild. That's a huge gap there.
Yeah, it took It took him a while to get the funding together for that Phantasm. And I think he did Beastmaster in between there. I don't remember.
Well,
that's for the Phantasm series, you know?
Yeah, we don't want to silver our balls there just yet. But I don't know what that means. But yeah, so Freddy has been on the scene now and really eaten Jason's lunch as far as big horror names go. Mm-hmm. He's been killing it in the box office. And then you've also had like horror being pretty mainstream. Like by this time, Aliens has happened, The Fly. Mm-hmm. So the landscape has changed considerably.
Probably like a lot more imaginative stuff is going on, especially with Freddy. That's why I was always more of a Fred head, as they say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the thing. So the initial pitch for this was they were going to try to do the Freddy versus Jason. But because, copyright law and intellectual property is just so smooth and easy to navigate. It got tangled up in the proceedings. Mm-hmm. So they kind of went, well, what if Jason fought Carrie instead?
Yeah. Which, I mean, on its head, it's not the worst idea, I don't think. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're going to go in that direction, you pick a final girl that now has telekinetic powers. I mean, sure, we're 7 in. Go for it.
Yeah, we've walked away from the Tommy Jarvis thing.
Yeah.
Like, we've decided he's done. So let's have a new hero, even though from what I understand, we never see this person again after this. But it's definitely an interesting idea. The execution is not my favorite once again, but it seems like they went back to 4 for a lot of it.
Oh, sure.
Very similar vibes to 4, but not done as well. They
certainly wanted to up the expectations. They wanted to up the, I guess the easiest way to frame it was, Daryl Haney was one of the producers, and she wanted this to be a higher profile film. She said she wanted to win an Academy Award, and evidently she considered Fellini to direct this film. But that's kind of like, I can consider a 3-picture deal at Warner Brothers, for my next few years. Yeah. Evidently, she reached out.
Yeah, I've considered that Kane Hodder does nothing else but listen to this podcast. But the reality of that does not match up at all.
Right. That's fun to me, though. Like this woman actually like really doubling down on like, no, I think we can really take Friday the 13th to Federico Fellini and see what he can do with it.
Was that the same producer that the director went head to head with?
No, it was not. That was a different producer. That poor woman got a lot of guff on the extras, on the DVD extras. Yeah.
I'll bet. Yeah, she did not seem to be a fan. And this is something that I'm always kind of fascinated by, because a lot of, the producer on movies, their job is to watch the budget and to make sure that you deliver on time and within budget. And So I'm always fascinated, not to go on a huge tangent, but like reality shows that are all about fixing things up, like Bar Rescue. Like, how do you have that show? How do you produce that show when you as the producer is like, don't spend any money whatsoever?
Right? Yes. But we need to make it nice. No, don't spend anything.
Yeah. So it's just funny that two of these in a row you have. Mancuso has sort of stepped back once again. So he's doing other things. But once again, you have a producer who, for different reasons perhaps, ended up being the enemy of everyone on set.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not an easy job necessarily, but it's also like,
not at all.
You could be a jerk about it.
Exactly. And it's evidently, by all reports, though, she was also just like not much of a horror fan. And right out of the gate, just don't put somebody on there who's not like really understanding what the goal is here. And she made a lot of creative decisions, which I was a little bit surprised about, especially for an associate producer. But the director has been quite vocal about his disdain for her.
Do you know what else this gentleman has directed?
He came from the Charles Band universe.
That's right. Which we will, I'm sure, be spending a lot of time in the Charles Band universe coming up. Full Moon Entertainment made a bunch of really schlocky, fantastic horror movies. But he directed one of his first directorial things was for a little movie called Dungeon Master, otherwise known as Rage War.
Oh, yes.
Which is a movie that Jim and I have both enjoyed.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's great. It's an anthology. Yeah, there's a bunch of little short stories kind of loosely tied together.
Yeah.
Very goofy, but a lot of fun. Richard Mall, Bull from Night Court, is an evil wizard. Oh, it's beautiful.
It's so good. He also came from a special effects background, evidently, too. Yeah. And I believe he at least was one of the people who did the effects on From Beyond and Reanimator. Gee whiz. Yeah. Take my horror card. Yes. But I mean, that's some pedigree, in my opinion, and
Oh, absolutely. And you find out that, boy, they clipped this guy's wings. The MPAA, this was another one, I think like 5, where they sent it back like 9 times, and they were really coming down on, which that's something that I'm sort of interested in, because it's easy to go to the just the puritanical thing that like this was the current zeitgeist of the time, with politically and culturally perhaps we were a little bit more conservative, whatever. But there's also the elements of, well, if horror is definitely more mainstream now, is that affecting it as well? Yeah. They're like, well, horror can't be this. It's got to be that, it's like, are the rubrics different for that kind of thing? But I don't know. They just apparently like they had all these neat little gags and makeup effects and stuff like that just got cut out. And I think the movie is worse for it.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't have that thrill.
There seemed to be less of a compromise, I guess, because in the other films, the MPAA would back down to a certain point. Like if they submitted something that was at a 10, they could get away with something at a 6, but at they seem to have to get away with something at like a 3 at this point. And it's really noticeable. And he is still very bent out of shape about it. I would be too. Yeah.
I would be too. Yeah. So John Carl Bickler, Beekler, I think is how you say it.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Well, I suppose diving right in, like I watched this movie last night, and I'm struggling to recall a whole lot of what happened in this movie. Yeah. And I really like the striking thing for me, and I mentioned this just a second ago, but like for something that takes such a giant swing, I feel like it comes out so lifeless. And maybe it is the kills. Maybe it is not a lot of interesting characters. I'm not exactly sure. I'm so glad I took some notes while watching this, because I couldn't tell you from scene to scene what was going on half the time.
Because we're 7 in and there hasn't been a super wide variety. And this one feels like it's really reaching back to 4. Yeah, it's starting to be this reoccurring thing where it's like, we're not spending enough time with these people to care. And then like the people that you're kind of wondering with this particular group of folks, like, why are you even hanging out together?
Yeah.
That never, so much of that didn't click for me. But like if the gore was there, like just like the fun kill stuff, that would make way more sense, or it would add to it so much more than what we got.
Sure. Yeah. So are you saying that at part 7, it is hurt a bit, just a little bit more?
It is hurt a bit. It does not hurt the same way that 5 hurts.
That's correct.
Yeah. This is more just like upset tummy.
Yeah. Upset tummy and a little bit of boredom. So it does. Yeah. It starts off on such a like a funny way too, because we get another flashback montage from the first few movies, and they're not even really in order. It's just kind of like thrown at the screen, I believe.
Yeah. It's more just an introduction like, hey, this is what Jason's been up to. Not necessarily his story, but just, there's a guy and he does some stuff.
It's what he does on the weekends kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's narrated by our Harbinger from the first two films. And he does literally say a death curse.
A curse on Crystal Lake. A death curse.
Yes, I got very excited because that's one of my favorite lines of the first one.
It's got a death curse.
So I said that out loud. I'm like, wait a minute. That sounds like that guy.
Yep.
So I looked it up and sure enough. Yeah, Walt Gurney.
Walt Gurney's, that was his final role, doing a VO narration for this. So we see Jason is chained down under the water to the rock from the last film. And there's a little girl that just looks like Carol Ann from Poltergeist. Frankly,
absolutely.
She's styled the exact same way. She's out on a lake on a boat and she just starts screaming to her father, who I guess we're just supposed to assume is kind of a piece of shit.
She's run out of the house because her dad has been drinking and abusing her mom.
Yeah.
And that's all we know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she hates her dad.
Yeah. And just starts screaming,
I hate you. I wish you were dead.
And it's pretty well implied that she destroys the bridge that he's standing on.
Yeah, just crushes the pier and he falls off and dies, and she's very upset by that.
And I gotta say, for the way that they filmed it too, it's not entirely clear. Like if you're watching Friday the 13th and there's no real supernatural elements other than just the existence of Jason in the last one. I, on its surface level, didn't really even believe that she was responsible for destroying the pier. I guess, like, just in the way it's filming, because you're not expecting telekinetic powers in this, and that's what it does, you know? So I had to rewind it a couple of times, just like out of curiosity, like, did they drive that home? Not really.
It is a left turn for this thing to take that, you know, all of a sudden that this other person has it. It's interesting though. Like, I'm glad they didn't try to like lure it up where it's like, turns out that Pamela Voorhees was part of a super secret military program that this person, you know, or some kind of thing. They're actually brother and sister, some nonsense like that. I did find there is a fan film currently available on YouTube, Friday the 13th, Roseblood. That stars the same main actress from this.
Nice.
Lar Superstar. What is her name? Lar Park Lincoln. And it's a sequel to that character. I don't know if it's any good.
Fun.
I saw that and I'm like, that might be a fun thing to watch sometime.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because the director really wanted to do a sequel to this one directly after it came out.
I mean, it makes sense. Like the story is interesting enough. I just don't think it's done very well.
So years later, Tina, the little girl on the boat who destroyed the pier, she's driving in the car with her mom, and they pass into Crystal Lake. And they do say like she spent some years in a mental hospital.
They're taking her to meet her doctor, Dr. Cruz, at the lake house by Crystal Lake, which is back to Crystal Lake. It's no longer Forest Green. I guess it's back to Crystal Lake.
Right. Good call.
Yeah. Which, going back to, speaking of undoing stuff, going back to that opening montage, I am curious about other movies doing this as we go forward for different franchises. Like Jason's constant reminding you of what happened last time on. With the first four, like, made sense, and then like it's kind of getting to the point that this is all really ancillary. But I know that like first thing that comes to my mind is Hellraiser 2. They're like, I'm pretty sure there's, you know, they give you like a last time on, but how long these things kind of keep going, because the idea that this is one complete story is kind of out the window now.
Yeah,
you know what I
true.
mean? Like there's like they are tying it together that no, he's still tied to the chain, but you know, there's been these huge jumps in time. It seems less important for me to know what immediately happened the day before.
Yeah.
It's just, I know who Jason is now.
I'm pretty sure Phantasm 2 does a big flashback of the first film at the beginning of that. And that's an ongoing story too. You know, Mike versus the tall man.
And there are plenty of those kind of movies where the sequel is just the first one plus a couple additional scenes.
Right.
Because it's them remembering the first one. So.
Yes.
But I do like this one, before we get too far into it, I like the new mask intro with the light shooting through the masks for the title thing. And then the score is just full of orc hits and is this weird like, I joked about Metal Machine music last movie. It's oof.
Nothing but.
Yeah.
This is another thing where I had to kind of like look it up, but I suppose this takes place 10 years after the first one for the sake of timeline.
It's supposed to be like a 10-year gap.
So Jason's been down there for 10 years. Soaking.
Which I have some questions about.
I'm sure, yes. Because we did get his eye opening at the end of the last one, correct?
At the end of the last one, yeah.
Yeah, as it always does.
But I'll wait till when he's revived to address my questions there.
Oh, are you saying he's going to get revived?
Yeah. Well, maybe like the whole time you're just waiting for him to come out. He doesn't. Yeah. It's actually a lovely story around it. And then it's like on Golden Pond, and at the end, Jason comes up. So, but I'd much rather talk about how awesome her mom's hair is.
Yes.
Because that is some like
huge
groupie for Jackal with a Y ass hair. Like that is, it's amazing.
Absolutely. Helmet, full on helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tina and her mom are driving to this facility where Dr. Cruz now owns this kind of like, is it a home for wayward teens again?
It's her house.
Right. Okay. Gosh. See,
because it seems weird because like, it seems like, well, he's already there. So it's, he's going to a halfway house. Because it took me a second because later when she's looking for a gun, like, no, my dad had a gun here. I'm like, why would your dad? Oh, it's your house. That's right.
Yeah. And there's just some weird chemistry between the three of them that you almost think that Dr. Cruz is also like a stepdad now or something. Like I had a hard time like figuring out the relationship to everybody. And that's the director's fault.
Because there's several weird things about him being a doctor and like some of that is built into the plot. But when pretty early on, it's like, well, she needs to be able to leave and go do whatever she wants. And the doctor's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, because the whole thing is that, so she's going to see the doctor because she's been in and out of these treatment facilities. She apparently has psychic powers and they're manifested when she gets super upset.
Yeah.
And he's kind of wanting to test that and see, what's going on and help her no longer to be super upset. And I guess his idea is that like, well, if I could take you to the site of your trauma, Lake, where your father died, we can perhaps cathartically work this all out, which I was thinking about if this thing was made now, good God, like just how underlined the trauma part of it would be.
Because every horror movie is about trauma.
Yeah, and that's fine. There are ways to do it, but it just seems like a little overkill these days when it's fine for a movie like this where it's fun to be like, yeah, she feels bad. Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Right.
So the first time, like her mom's like, you should go out and have fun because next door there's teens partying. There's a cabin right next door, and just like in part 4, there's teens partying.
That's where I was getting the conflation going. Like, I thought that those kids were somehow a part of his group at first, and we were getting the whole wayward teens.
And I think you're supposed to understand that it's different when you get the random sex scene where the guy's like,
hey,
Yeah.
if this is my uncle's house, why are we sleeping in the van?
Says we're sleeping.
like, who are you? What's happening?
Right.
Yeah, it's like, so it's very unclear what's going on there. But the doctor and the mom, they do kind of have a thing. And I wish they would have explored that a little bit more because it does seem like a little controlling stepdad thing.
Either more or less, just like in that weird sense. And like more would have been at least a little bit more drama going on. But most importantly, did you recognize the actor who plays Dr. Cruz?
He went to my high school.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Harry Kaiser.
Yeah. All right. So
I don't know if he graduated from there, but he spent some time there.
That's great.
As a student, not like selling drugs.
Right. Then I'm sure that you know him as Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's. Yeah. Like when I looked him up, I was like, oh God, he's the bopping around corpse from Weekend at Bernie's.
And the villain from Tammy and the T-Rex.
Oh gosh, I did not know that either. Gosh. All right. He struck me as a very like Ray Wise type of guy too at times.
He's wise-ish. Yeah.
I think it's also the costuming. It's the sleeveless sweaters. And the kind of the poofed up and back hair. Absolutely. Yeah. He's a little Leland Palmery at times.
Yeah.
So we pull up and there's some mean girls in bikinis sitting there and our love interest, Nick, looking real hunky, helping Tina take her luggage out of the car. And there's a little bit of an altercation there, just like implying that these two girls are just going to be like, I don't know, the shitty teen girls for the movie. Like, we're our
catty and mean.
We're your terrible ladies for the movie type of thing.
So it's interesting because one of them, like the worst one, Melissa, played by Susan Jennifer Sullivan. There's some controversy there that I've never, by the time of this recording, fully figured out because the Crystal, I'm just called the Crystal Light documentary, the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, referred to her as having died in 2009. But there's an online group of people that are like, no, she's not dead. They have a different actress. This different actress named Susan Jennifer Sullivan is dead. This actress is still alive. She doesn't want anything to do with it. And she goes by this different name now. And I never determined whether or not that's actually true or whatever, but I just thought that was a weird, like,
absolutely
rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah. And also, like, did she change her name because of the film? She didn't want to be associated.
Because I could see, like, cause she's very good at being an evil person in this. And so
completely.
I'm sure Gene Siskel was like, write her death threat.
Yes. Right. Yet another person who has to move into the witness protection agency because of Gene Siskel. So yes, Tina's there to see this doctor, and he's trying to get her to move things with her mind.
I told you I don't know how it happens. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen.
And you're lying to me. You are lying because it happens when your emotions are at their peak.
Do you ever get so pissed you could move a matchbook with your brain?
Yeah, and of course I'm just like, oh, just like the Hulk, and then I'm like, oh no, like Carrie, dude. This is fully like Carrie. Like when she did that when she got angry. They flash back to the beginning of the film. They flash back to her killing her father, and I just wrote in my notes like, you can't do a flashback 10 minutes into your movie that just happened.
It's like, how stupid do you think I am? I just saw this.
Yes.
It's like, for the people that came in late, that's on them. That's not my problem.
Granted, I did just say a few moments ago that I could barely remember anything that happened in this movie. So maybe that was for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
We get this flashback where she accidentally raises Jason with her powers.
Yeah. So she has a blow up, like goes and stands by the lake and is looking into the lake and just focusing all her anger on the lake, and something. It's not like specifically she summoned Jason. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be an interesting thing too. If somehow he's the like unwitting puppet of hers and he's got to like fight against him. I don't know, whatever. I'm making up a whole movie, so I can't be mad at this one for not being that. But something happens anyway, and I kind of like that vagueness that rises him up. But it does. I have several questions about what he's been doing.
Yes.
Because we get an implication at the end of the last one that his eye is open, that he's still alive down there. Clearly, he can't really be killed. You do see him. I know one of the people, the comments about Kane Hodder's Jason is you see him breathing a lot compared to other Jasons, which I just think is neat. Like, I never really thought about it as like him oxygenating his body because you can see his spine.
Yes.
So I feel like that's kind of out the window. But we talked about it in a previous episode that how he's not actually like afraid of water. He'll just go in water. Like, why didn't he just like move the boulder?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's a big, strong guy. He's busting through doors. Like, he had time.
Yeah. I bet the director of this one was just thinking like, gosh, if they only wouldn't have had him open his eye at the end of the last one, I could have done whatever I needed to do. You know? And again, lore is only as good as it needs to be until it gets in the way, and then you just retcon it. Yeah, which is clearly what they did. You know? And so, she accidentally raises Jason. But it's not like, did she have any other intent while she was out there?
I think it was just putting that anger in the lake. Just
really Jean Greying it up as Phoenix type of thing.
Just uncontrollable vibes modulated with whatever Jason was putting out. And it's scientific.
What does she raise? Oops, all Jasons. You know, just
all Jasons,
Jason comes
just
out.
A bunch keep popping out of there. Yeah.
Yes. That I would have liked. But most importantly here is that when he does walk out of the lake, we get a great shot of him from behind, and it's very clearly a different design now. So the flesh is rotted off of him. You see bones coming out of his back.
It's so gross. I
do like that bit. Absolutely.
Yeah, because now I'm starting, I had mentioned previously that I'm like, I don't get Jason, but now like that he's an actual monster, I'm like, okay, now I'm on board with this.
It's a little bit more fun. Cut to a couple's car is broken down. They decide to camp right off the road. And she was going to throw him a surprise party, which is just terrible. But yeah, what do you do when your car breaks down? Maybe it is just in the 80s before cell phones. You literally just camp by the side of the road.
Just camp.
I've not done that myself, but
I was already annoyed with that because of our previous conversations of, oh, cool, we're already just throwing random people at this. But then I do like how they're on the way to the party. This is going to influence things later.
Yes.
That I did like that they bothered to try to tie it together this time. And because, it's supposed to be his surprise party, which is why all the teens or young people, it's really not clear how old these folks are.
Yeah.
That's why it's all happening, because he's supposed to be there. I liked that. I thought that was a neat little bit. Rather than being like, oh, we're having a picnic in the woods for some reason.
And also that delineation where it's not camp counselors. This is just like, there's no longer counselors. There's no longer kids arriving. There's none of that. This is just like a lake house, like a party house for the weekend. Nick, our hunky guy, drops by the house to meet Tina and her mom, and he invites Tina to the party next door. Right in my note, I go right from there to Jason stabs Jane, leaves her against the tree. Like, I'm not sure what happened in between that.
Well, yeah, so you have, we were talking about it where, geez, you're an emotionally volatile, traumatized person with uncontrollable psychic powers.
Yes.
Look, Dr. Spuds McKenzie says you just need to party.
Right. Did you read the stuff about the actor who plays Nick is gay? And they had terrible chemistry. I wanted to confirm that before we talked about that necessarily.
Yeah, they did. They apparently did not get along on set. They just straight up didn't have chemistry. And some people call this one Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's like you ain't seen nothing yet until you saw Freddy 2.
Yeah, well, there's apparently several of the actors in this one are gay, and I mean, imagine a gay actor.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
I'm just I don't know why that's a thing, and it didn't have all the interesting subtext of Freddy 2.
Yeah, it's just they weren't great actors.
Yeah,
they had no chemistry.
Right.
No offense to either of them, but just it wasn't a great performance.
Yeah,
there's really nothing there, and
I didn't
really care for him much.
Yeah.
But apparently they've in later in life they've become friends and they're buddy now. You start spending a lot of time with the partiers, with the other people in the party. You're introduced to Nick is cousin of the guy that was just murdered in the woods, Michael.
Okay.
There's the preppy guy whose house it is. It's his uncle because he gets upset about people making a mess in there.
Oh, right.
His girlfriend, Sandra, they were the ones having sex in the van, and then that really sort of throwaway scene. Ben and Kate, they're a couple, and then David, the stoner bad boy.
Oh, yeah.
Robin and her buddy, Maddie, who gets just a raw deal in this.
Yeah. Raw deal.
Snobby, Melissa, the snob we talked about, and the Eddie. So we have another Ed character.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think of Starlicon? 30,000 years into the future, the entire galaxy is populated by highly evolved protozoa.
Thanks a lot.
Good, huh?
Why is this guy there?
Yeah.
I mean, with Shelley, it was well, it's my roommate. I'm just going to try for the best. There's no one likes Eddie. No one enjoys talking. It's a mystery why he's there.
No one knows what to do with him. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we get all of our introduction. The teens are partying like they always have to. Tina and Nick shows up, and then Tina sees a vision of Jason and freaks out and runs. And so it's kind of hard to tell. At this point, I was automatically going was that a kill that we'd already seen? No, this must be a forthcoming kill, or she's got the premonition. Yeah, that's the fun thing about her psychic powers is that they are ill-defined and can do whatever we need them to. They can do whatever the screenwriter needs them to do. Yeah, because I like the idea of can see it happening before, but then she's also telekinetic and whatever. Yep. But it is, I had a very old man moment watching it because she sees that kill, which is cool because it's in the kitchen. And I like that it wasn't she just saw the shot as we saw it later. It's Jason stabbing the guy in the kitchen. Yes. When in reality it happened in the woods. She drops the Coke or whatever that she's drinking, and it's a carpeted kitchen. And I was like, why would you carpet a kitchen? So I'm just more concerned about the interior layout of this house. You're just asking for stains. We are men of a certain age, John. Yeah. Although I guess you don't see behind the bar, the counter, maybe it's tiled back there. I hope
just
so.
Shouldn't have had soda on the white. Yeah. It's a white carpet. Yes. Whatever. Yeah. It's the 80s. Right. But that was more of my surprise rather than the psychic was the decor. Right. But yeah, so she goes running off and convinced that she's seen something. And this happens. This movie is just this chain of events again and again, where it's something happens, she runs back and tells her doctor and mom, "Oh my God, I saw something." They're like, "Yep, no, even though you have psychic abilities, you're probably just dumb." Right. I mean, we find out later why that might be the case for the doctor, but the mom is really no help either. Sure. Yeah. And it got a little tiresome. But even the doctor at that point tries to ask her what's going on, when she saw Jason.
What do you mean you saw it?
Well, I didn't actually see it, but I know.
Okay. What were you doing right before it happened?
Why?
Because these are delusions.
Tina, you're creating images of your father.
No, all right. Well, he left a large delusion stuck in our back porch.
There's also a premonition of a spike against the cabin at that point, I believe.
So when she discovers the spike, he goes out to check, and then you see him come back in and be like, "There's no spike." And so, as we find out later, that just to spoil, the doctor's basically trying to gaslight her the whole time and keep her emotions up to elicit the psychic response. Which I read a review that complained about that because there's no financial incentive for him to do that. Which is a weird libertarian way to look at this, but is also untrue because if you are a doctor and you have like, oh yeah, no, here's evidence of psychic ability or whatever, you're set. Like, it's fine.
Absolutely.
But that's just weird that like the only reson anyone would do anything is
for
money.
Financial,
like, hey, Jason, you should get into mutual funds, not murdering children in the woods.
Man, if I had evidence of psychic abilities, the heck with this whole video production thing.
Yeah, it's dumb.
And podcasting.
Yeah. But the podcast would just be me going like, hey, guess who knows about psychic shit? This guy.
Right. This might be a little early, but that's a pretty good motivation for a villain in this story, I think.
Yeah, this is an interesting movie that they just added Jason to. For not wanting, like, we don't want to make the Fury Part 2. We want to just make Jason.
Yeah, and this is the first time that there's almost like a secondary villain, too.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought about that until just now. But that's
a good question. Because I mean, like, the punks in Part 3 aren't even really like a mini boss. They're just kind of some antagonists. But yeah, this is... and then there's like internal struggles with people like the Ethel and her dumb kid.
You big dildo.
But yeah, this is the first time that there is like a different malevolent force.
Yeah. And just like trying to keep someone angry and on edge is so cruel, but to get the psychokinetic powers to come out, like, I'm not saying I endorse that, but it's like, that's a clever idea, I think.
It's something it would have been interesting to explore a little bit more, but it seems like they were wrangled in by this. Well, we have to make a Friday the 13th movie. Like, we can try some different stuff, but like, we have to have a bunch of teenagers. Even though I think the sixth one, for as much kind of crap as I loved at it, does a better job of having those things happen, even though the murders were kind of random or whatever, but still keeping it sort of together.
Yep.
Whereas this one, it just feels like two stories kind of jammed together.
Oh, at this point, we're back to the campers, and one of them leaves. I keep calling them campers because I'm so used to calling them campers.
They are.
Yeah, they're just
essentially are. That's
just counselors. They're partiers. They're teens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you're in a Friday the 13th movie, you're a
camper.
There's a couple camping in the woods. Like, I don't think they're connected with the campers at all. Yeah. I felt bad for this dude because his girlfriend, partner, whatever is there, and she's like, "Go get some wood. It's cold. Go get some wood." And he's like, "Hey, how about some sexy time?"
Dan, we need wood. It's gonna be a cold night tonight.
So he goes to find some wood, and then she immediately like gets into bed all naked and stuff. And it felt like
cozy.
They were trying to be like, remember Part 4 when we had this fake out tent scare? What if it was actually real? But when he comes back, she's like,
"Okay, you big hunk of a man, come and get me."
Very needy person. Yeah. I hope Dan is not forgetting his needs, like needing to not have his spine ripped out by Jason. But unfortunately, in the woods, his spine is ripped out by Jason. I like how, again, Jason being now even more of an undead ghoul just punches through yet another guy.
And he gets his weapon like Zelda.
He uses it to open the tent and do one of the best kills in the Friday the 13th series.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, here again, we will say our favorite kill, which is always weird. Yeah. But two things about this that are great. One, Kane Hodder always says this is his favorite kill. And then I will say, I like this version way better than the version that they submitted to the MPAA. I think this is where editing made this even better, which is Jason takes the girl in the sleeping bag and just whams her against a tree. And it's just one hit and done.
Because in the previous other versions, like, it's a whole bunch. At one time, like, a bunch of blood sprays out, which would have been fun in its own way. Like, if the movie had already set the tone that, like, we've made it gushy this time around, fine. But it's wonderful. It's so silly, but like horrifying, and it's great.
Yeah, it rides a line between horrifying and kind of Looney Tunes style as well. Like, and that's really delicate to do. Yeah, that cracked me up.
It's right, because you have to think that Jason is down there. not just immediately dead, which it's the end of 6 didn't seem like it was. And he's probably like getting bored.
Yeah.
Because there's not much to do when you're chained to a rock. So he's probably just imagining different ways to kill people and having new and exciting things. So he's excited to try them out.
That's the best one by far in this movie. And possibly my favorite of the series. I'm not sure.
It's also like, it's so simple.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what's great about it. It's just stupid and so, but it's also like the strength it would take to do that is terrifying.
Completely. And Kane Hodder was getting super frustrated because there was like 20 pounds of blood in there or something like that. And he was
20
getting
gallons.
He was getting really mad. And you can kind of see that in his body language of just like trying to like whip it against the tree. We cut to teens making breakfast in the morning, and Nick wants to go see Tina. They're hanging out on the deck where her father died, and the doctor is at her house. Thought we saw something, and then they kiss, and we realize that Melissa is like spying on them from afar.
Yes. Yeah, because Melissa has her eyes on Nick. And she gets what she wants.
Yes.
Which is apparently a lot of pantsuits. She wears a lot of pantsuits in this.
Yep.
But, it's funny. It's this kind of era where, are you a teen? Well, you look like you're 30. And I'm not saying that for the actors playing the role, but just like the styles at the time where like
certainly
when Maddie like quote unquote pretties herself up later, it's like, now I'm a secretary.
Yeah. Now I do the church bake sale.
I'm dressed like the kind of person that would hate this movie.
Right. PMRC. Tina's all chipper in the next morning, and I guess she runs into Dr. Cruz again because I just wrote in my notes, who is this? Polly Walnuts from Sopranos? So that was another, like, is this guy Polly Walnuts plus Ray Wise equals our Dr. Cruz a little bit here? They're grilling, they're partying in the kitchen, and that's where we hear the line, girl, you need some touch-up work.
Yeah, because Maddie and Robin are both hot to trot for the stoner bad boy.
Yep.
He gives her a smile. He gives Maddie a smile. She's like,
Robin, did you see the way David just looked at me? Oh, get real, Maddie. You're not his type. You need a little touch-up work first.
which is just mean.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Maddie. She's fine. And plus, like, look around. All of you are uggos.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible.
No. And he is rolling lot of joints.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of weed going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's already some bad blood brewing there.
This is the now they pull a mean girl prank on Tina and put a jacket over somebody backwards and say,
Isn't this the way they wear their jackets back in the mental hospital?
it's a mean pull, but then Tina pulls Melissa's pearls off with her telekinetic powers and like breaks them. And again, something we haven't seen in a Jason movie before.
It was
I'll take it. But then, of course, the doctor dresses her down. And we've got another one of these scenes. I feel like these scenes just kept on coming up.
Yes.
Yeah. And at this point, it finally came to a little bit of a boiling point. But so far, I just felt they were so redundant. Just more of these scenes of her like getting yelled at by this doctor. But I guess based on what we were saying earlier, if he's trying to keep her at a heightened sense all the time, he has to yell at her every night about what she's doing.
But just like if it was more ingrained to the story and not like the same kind of thing, where it's just been like, oh, I'm doing something. Oh my God, something happened. I'll just go tell my doctor. No, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to go do something. Something happened. I'm just tell the doctor. No, it didn't happen. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's kind of one note again and again and again. It doesn't feel like it's building, although she's getting increasingly angry. It's just a little tiresome.
Yeah, she gets so angry, she throws a television at him, which is, as The Exorcist says, that's a vulgar display of power. Like full on, just whips a TV at the doctor.
I guess because he wants her psychically up there, they don't change anything. They're like, no, keep going and hanging out with these awful pieces of shit.
Yeah, right.
That's fine.
Mean, that's his evidence of psychokinetic power right there. Like, what does he not
with her mind
film this? Does he not want to be like, Eureka? We have it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. She might throw the camera. That's an expensive camera.
There you go. Yeah.
The TV he doesn't own. It's hers. It's her house. So
yeah, we're back to the blonde girl. Of course, nothing cannot be solved without skinny dipping in the middle of the night in a Jason movie.
Yeah, you get Russell S. girlfriend. And their dialogue here is particularly groany.
When did you first fall in love with me?
The first time I saw the enormous size of your beautiful wallet.
Well, this huge bulge in your pants is calling out my name.
Oh, the 80s. Ha 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 ha. And she goes skinny dipping. And I actually like when you see what the kill was supposed to be. And unfortunately, there's not going to be a director's cut of anything because I guess a lot of the negatives and outtakes got destroyed. So they're just gone. You can find there's some like crappy VHS copies of the extended stuff, but Jason does this total like one-armed golf swing up with an axe at the guy's face. And the makeup is really neat looking.
It's so good.
Yeah. And they just, of course, nope, they got rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I am curious more about the behind the scenes stuff because you do hear about, as we've talked about in previous versions, how they would be like, well, we'll cut a little bit of this.
Yep.
But we'll try to keep this as much as possible and stuff like that. But it just seemed they just went, either the MPAA went, no. We're sticking our ground. If the producers went, we don't want to do this dance anymore. We can't afford this. We got to just give them cuts, just take the cuts and go.
Mm-hmm.
How that happened, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of middle ground met on a lot of this.
Absolutely.
It is just removed.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those cases with this kill. I think is it a full on like they cut before the axe hits?
Yeah, it's like you just don't see it. Like you see him like make the arm move, like I believe it goes a little bit closer to Jason.
Yeah, and there's some great photos of the makeup tests of his head like kind of split open with this giant prosthetic.
Very impressive, and it's just so frustrating because Beekler was a makeup guy. You hired a guy to make this guy who was like, no, I come from this background of making these awesome prosthetic gags and stuff like that. Cool, well, don't use them.
Yeah, and it's also how infuriating it must be too, where the makeup bits in movies like this take the longest to stage and they take the longest to shoot. So like, let's say like, well, we've got 7 hours of our 12-hour day assigned for this one makeup gag. And then it doesn't even get used. So you know that you were standing around in the woods at night, possibly in the rain for like hours on end and spent all that time and it doesn't even make it to the cut. So that's gotta be so frustrating.
Robin's death later, they had to reshoot because the thing they did, it involved like her having a prosthetic body and things happening. When they saw it, they're like, oh, that doesn't work.
Right.
Like the body moved or something. And so they had to go reshoot. And that's a horse of a different color. Like this is just like, no, we can't show it.
Too much.
I almost wish I didn't know that because it makes the movie harder to watch.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What could have been. But I'm sure the director is just like, please just like know that I tried and I tried to do these things. And
because that's also like, this isn't like premium studio stuff, but like this is going to be a widely released movie. More people are going to see this than saw Dungeon Master. So this is time for people to see what I can really do. And then like, nope, sorry.
I'm totally going to throw on Dungeon Master tonight.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
I'm going to watch that again. Anyway, and then Jason drowns her in the water. Then we go on to
blah, 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 drown.
The 80s teen movie makeover.
Yeah.
It's happening. She's taking off her glasses. She's applying makeup. And I don't know, this kind of stuff always makes me feel a little uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't want anybody to make fun of her like at all.
It's a little bit like, and I don't want to be like too overprotective and patronly here, but like, like how Maddie... Because it seems like David, the bad boy stoner guy, is going more for Robin. Because Robin wants to go smoke, and Maddie's like, "You don't smoke." She's like, "Well, I'm going to go smoke with this guy." Maddie wants to stay upstage her by dressing up, and it's a very sort of intimate moment. It's this very sort of human thing about like I'm actually a person, and I have this interiority where I feel bad about myself, and I'm like putting on makeup or something that we can all sort of identify with and be there, rather than just like I'm rich and I'm mean.
Certainly, and I'm all for like a character or even people in real life just being like, I'd like to like, just kind of work on the fashion, work on the appearance. But she's so clearly doing it for somebody else and not for herself.
Yeah.
That's where it makes it feel a little like kind of sad.
Yeah. You know what it is like between her and Sarah in 4 is it's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
That so many other of these characters don't have in the same way. Like they're all vulnerable to getting murdered. but as anyone is, but just that like taking the time to be like, oh, these are kind of life is precious.
There are people here.
Yeah. And it was just a bummer. And it's funny that like even watching the documentary about whatever, how they still call Maddie the ugly duckling.
I know.
And I think she even might refer to herself as that. She's fine.
Come on. Yeah. So we cut back and forth between this, and Jason pulls the girl's body out of the lake that he just drowned. And I do think that shot was actually pretty gruesome. Like how he hauled it out of walked it up on shore, all of that. That was really well done. Yeah. The whole like underwater thing of her is very kind of Jaws-like and Yeah. And so then we get more of Melissa.
Hi, Nick. Are you still mad at me?
What was that crap you pulled on Tina this afternoon?
That chick's crazy. Besides, all is fair in love and war.
Melissa, I don't even like you.
Like has nothing to do with it.
She's touched on this before where she's like just basically into like either arranged marriages or like marrying for money type of thing. It's just her character at this point.
Like it's everything is transactional to her.
Yes,
she's like, no, I want to get, you're hot. I want to have sex with you. I don't care if you like me. Let's just get this done. Put it in the books and I can move on with my life. And you're a trophy I can claim.
Yeah. And I'm clearly a trophy too. So be happy.
And she tries to prove that by, because most everyone is high now. Well, at least David and Robin and Eddie are high because Eddie has wrapped himself in crepe paper from the party.
I know. Star mummy.
Which is great. So she starts flirting with him. You know, and I didn't, this took me a while to pick up here, going back to Maddie, that there's, like I said, a deleted scene where she actually goes and smokes pot with them in the barn before getting attacked by Jason, because I forgot that they'd kind of gone outside, because it's the way it's done is that she puts on the makeup and then just like goes wandering in the woods.
Yeah.
She actually has one of the more like, I don't know, like brutal but prolonged deaths, because Jason chases her for a long time and gets her into this shed and like hacks away at her. And in that, not to just keep talking about it, but the Crystal Lake documentary, the actress was like, oh, this ex-boyfriend of mine told me that after we broke up, he kept watching that scene. I'm like, well, that's fun. That's a fun little piece of information. Why would you say that? Why would you share that with anybody?
There are so many levels of that, of people could just choose not to release this information, you know, whether it be him, then her, then the producers of the documentary, now us.
I'm just as complicit.
Exactly. But I felt so bad when I watched that, especially because she's the quote unquote ugly duckling of the movie. Yeah. I'm just like, haven't you been put upon enough? You know? Well, again, this is where we come back to the idea of horror movies are an exercise in empathy, where I care for this person. And now I care for the actress too, who has been put through this.
Like, well, I hope she's happy now. That's all I want.
Yes.
Because that guy sounds like a turd.
He sounds terrible. That's not even something that you just like throw off in an argument.
Yeah.
You know, that's just gosh.
I'm going to go watch you die.
Somewhere in there, Dr. Cruz goes for a walk. He finds another spike.
Yes, he finds the spike Jason used to kill the guy.
Yeah, and then the mom is snooping around a little bit, finds another spike, and a VHS tape. This is the great, we need some backstory database.
The documentation here is much greater. Keeping Tina's trauma and stress levels high, I am confident I can induce huge psychokinetic reactions.
Yeah, this is the Lyle Landley's portfolio. This is okay, here's my evil plan. Yeah, she ends up confronting the doctor about it, and they have a whole thing, which is great. And then Ben and Kate are having sex in a van. And they think that someone's shaking the van. They're like, oh, it's Michael. He's probably showing up and he's messing with us. And so they said, well, we should probably stop having sex and go say hi to Michael. Ben gets dressed because they open the door. They're like, surprise, no one's there. So Ben gets dressed to go investigate. And this, again, I think is where Jason thought about different ways to kill, like different ideas to do. Yep. And then he got overexcited and he didn't know what to do with Ben. He didn't figure out what to do before he got out there because he's taking his head. I guess he's crushing his head. But it looks like he can't tell if he's like, should I turn it? Or am I making me take the jaw off? I guess he's dead now. I think Jason just got too excited. The kill was not executed properly. Yeah. But he makes up for it.
Oh, gosh. A close second behind the sleeping bag kill for my personal sensibilities is death by party horn. pulls her out of the van and crams a party horn, jams it into her eye. Yeah, because he's walking around outside with it, right?
Well, it's they had it when they burst it out out of the back.
Yeah,
and he just like picked it up. We joked in the last one about in 5 about the bad Foley, but here it's just perfect. It's gross, but adding that little tiny is beautiful. Yeah. That element of comedy I think works really well for this kind of thing, rather than the more broad swaths of part 6, where it's like that's silly enough, but it's silliness piled on top of goriness, so it's kind of
Well, this is.
And I wonder if they fought to keep that.
Well, sure, but this is again where they had to fight over his head getting crushed too. Again, in those deleted scenes, you can just see like blood just pouring out of this prosthetic type of thing. And that was completely cut out for this. So, that makes the horn like more of a cherry on top type of thing. Like, let's take this down a notch a little bit after something so brutally like violent. Like now we'll have a little horn button. Yeah.
It's like the shower kill in part 4 could have used that after Jason just fucks that guy up.
God, absolutely. Yes.
Something like that. Like something, I don't know, some joke with Mr. Bubble or something. I don't know. Eddie has been the victim of Melissa's wiles, and that she's just trying to use him to get Nick to be jealous. So he's trying to smooch on her, and she's like, you know what? I'm actually not into this. I was just using you. And I'm torn here because he's like, all right, I'll take rejection. I've been rejected by every science fiction magazine. And then he leaves. He walks out later. He's like, oh, she's a boop and whatever.
Yeah.
Has some name calling things, but he doesn't have that Shelley had.
Sure.
I think he would be watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard nonsense. He wouldn't be like making the memes that Shelley would be making. He's like, cause he's bad too, but he's not. I think he's better than Shelley.
Better than Shelley. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
he's
so.
He's a little bit more resigned to his fate of like, well, fine. I guess this is just how it goes. But
yep.
I don't know. He still sucks. Like, I just don't think he's as bad.
Which is a total diminishing returns of characters like this, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tina packs up. She overhears the doctor threatening to put her back in the hospital, threatens to commit her. This is now my favorite thing to write in my notes. When I can tell a Friday the 13th movie is going off the rails, I'm just like, how far are we from Baghead now? Like, it's just like to how far we've come from number 2 to now our telekinetic teen who is getting threatened to be put back into a mental institution by her mom and this weird doctor. Like, I love it, but how far we are from 5 movies ago.
Part 7.
Yes, we are 7 parts away. As she's driving away, she sees Jason killing her mom on the side of the road as a vision of sorts.
As a vision, yeah.
And this was originally supposed to be Jason holding up the head of Pamela Voorhees. But they decided that was too goofy and it didn't tie in enough to the actual story. And the Pamela Voorhees head was supposed to say something. I don't know. I would have kind of liked that for the continuity and lore sake a little bit.
It would have been interesting, but I kind of at the same time like, okay, cool. Because I feel like they're trying to break away from that a little bit. Is the Jason just sort of this more mythic figure of like, yeah, he's got these different backstories, whatever. Like the point is he's a monster and whatever. But that would have been cool. But yeah, it seems like we're a little beyond Pamela Voorhees at this point. After David, eventually Robin finds David's severed head, Jason again. And excellent timing on Jason's part, puts the severed head in this little corner by the window. So when she finds it, then he's like, all right, now we'll enter the room. And it's funny because this, as I mentioned before, her kill got, the makeup wasn't right. So they had to reshoot it. And they reshot it in the Jarvis house from part 4 in that same cabin. And they kill Robin. Jason kills Robin in the same way as one of the twins in part 4. My favorite shot in part 4, where he pulls her out he just throws her through a window, and it's clearly a male stuntman. But it's very funny. But yeah, they just okay, well, we can't do anything fancy, so we'll just throw you out of a window.
Throw out the window. Yeah. And
then Jason starts getting wild with the tools after this.
Dr. Cruz and the mom are out looking for Tina at this point. This is sometimes these scenes in Friday the 13th movies work and sometimes they don't. And for this time, I was just like, God, now we're just like chasing somebody around in the woods for 20 minutes. And I think I was just like not even like really enjoying this movie at this point, that I was just like, okay, now we're back to the woods, which is what a Jason movie is. But I also just always think about it from like a budget standpoint. I'm like, oh, we just go into the woods. It's cheap, get some lights out there. It's fine,
Well, it's usually like this perimeter breaking where Jason gets closer and closer to the house and then he's in the house and then that's where it's all going on. So like this, when he's in there killing people, it seems like it should start kicking off. But no, he's back out in the woods and people are looking for him. And Dr. Cruz does the most, even more so than Maddie's vulnerability, the most human thing is when he's attacked by Jason, he uses Tina's mom as a human shield.
I mean, that was kind of brutal. Yeah.
That was like, and what a great move for a bad guy. Cause it was pure cowardice.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I can get something out of this. It was like, just like, oh shit, you were here.
Yeah. And I will never not think of Total Recall when I think of the human shield moments. And that was what our hero used, a human shield in a Verhoeven film.
Well, that guy had already been shot. It's fine.
That's true. Yes. This one was, and that was guns and like less of a physical, like immediate, like kill. That I did like at the end of that scene, because at the beginning of the scene, like I said, I was a little bit like, oh God, here we are doing this thing now. But then that was particularly rough and in a good way. I mean, yeah.
And he gets his, because like Jason's coming after him and like he's got like a knife on a stick, but then eventually he gets like a heavy duty weed whacker with like an actual saw blade on it, and that's how the doctor gets his.
Kane Hodder
which I like how there's not some kind of petty irony or something. It's just he just gets hacked down like everybody else. It's not like
you're not special, doctor.
By a book of medicine or something.
Right. Kane Hodder said, that's a tool that I had never seen before and I have never seen since. I think it's a weed whacker, but I'm not sure. But you can still see like a saw blade on the underneath of it. Yeah. I don't know. But there again, they submitted so many cuts to the MPAA of like the weed whacker going into a belly and coming out. And
Nick and Tina go back to the house to try to find to get, because I think they found some bodies. They found like her mom, I think, and like they go to the house. She's like, my dad has a gun, I remember, so we'll go get it. And then she finds, I think it's her dad's journal about Jason Voorhees. And she's like, oh, like he saved some clippings or something like that.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, it's that. This is, I know who this is now. Okay,
like,
fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's like a local historian. Like
it's a little bit like in part 6 where Tommy's like, okay, we need to get Jason back to the lake.
Yeah,
this is based on nothing. I'm making this up. Where it's just like, this doesn't matter that you know who he is. Like, aha,
sure,
I know it says here in the article. Jason's weak to my psychic powers, so I should use those.
Yeah. He's an unstoppable killing machine, says the Dayton Post.
2 thumbs up, Rick. Okay,
right.
But yeah, but so and this is where it does get kind of fun, where it's Jason starts attacking her. And Melissa gets taken out because they go to tell her and she's like, I don't believe it. Opens the door. Jason's right there. And whammo.
Oh, right. Yes. Because everybody wants her to get hers at that point.
Yeah.
Because she's a despicable character, but
she is. Yeah. But then you get Melissa and you get Tina and Jason fighting with her psychic powers, which is kind of fun. But then you start thinking about like, oh, well, I guess she's mastered them pretty quickly because she has like, I like how, because he's coming after Nick and she just makes the mask compress on his face. And so it's like digging into his skull and just all that like gross street trash juice is coming out of his head.
I like that because it's not her just using her powers to fling stuff at him. It's like she's making a choice to use like, I'm going to tighten the mask on you.
Then it bursts open. This apparently is the movie that you see Jason's face the most, like the Jason is maskless the most. Because he remains that way for the rest of the film. And I do like, it splits down the middle.
So what do you think of his look? This is important.
Overall, I like it because it is a little bit more monstery looking.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit less I think the mask on is actually more terrifying in this thing. It just fits that look better.
I want to like it more than I do because I do agree that it's more cartoony. And usually I'm game for something like that, but like it doesn't look cheap. That's the wrong word. It just like, it doesn't look nearly terrifying at all.
No, it's like, and this is a weird thing to say because I was terrified by this character when I was a kid, but it's like it veers towards Large Marge. Like it's that kind of,
yeah.
You know, there's like these sort of extreme features and stuff like that. But I like how they went with, well, this guy's been through a lot of stuff. Yeah. Let's have that show up on his face. And you know, there is something, it's like he's almost gorilla looking, which I think I thrown off a little bit by. But I like the visible, like the hole in the cheek and that kind of thing. Yep. So here's it. Like I started thinking about, because she starts using her psychic powers on him more now, like breaking a light bulb, having cords come out and choke him while she makes a hole in the basement to drop him. Yep. And like, that's got to be a lot of, I mean, that's way different than throwing a TV. That seems sort of like the patting your head and rubbing your belly of psychic abilities, being able to do those two things at once.
Does she create the hole in the stair steps? Okay. Yeah.
Then they like fight some more in the basement and she's psychically flinging nails at him. And stuff like that. Right. He starts doing this thing with his jaw, which was a big deal if you've ever seen Mandy. It was a big deal for Panos Cosmatos because Nick Cage started doing that in a couple of scenes because he as a character reference thing, he just gave him all the Jason movies. Didn't necessarily, he's like, just watch what Jason does. And nothing specifically, but yeah, there's like this way he moves his mouth where it's just kind of this, I don't even know what the emotion is supposed to convey. Just sort of like annoyance. Yeah. And like, I don't know, like that. I'm still coming at you. But I do like that element of Jason in this one too. Like that he's a lot more of a thing in this, like he's breathing and moving and stuff. And the physicality that Kane Hodder brings to this it's a different kind of Jason than we've seen. And I think it's very effective, particularly for how monstrous he is now.
She sprays gasoline on him and lights him on fire. And this stunt is pretty famous for the fact that it was like the longest a stunt person, at least at the time, was on fire for, which is 40 seconds. And count to 40 and just think about being on fire for that long. Like, that's insane. Yeah. God. And I should have looked this up before we recorded, but like, I can't remember if Kane Hodder had been a part of another stunt that he had caught on fire for, or if this stunt was the one that he was like kind of stepping back into the saddle for, you know?
No, it did have it, and he offered to show an interviewer and her cameraman a fire stunt, and it went horribly wrong and led him with tons of burns all over his body.
So that was like before this film.
That was before this film. So much like Jason in water is Kane Hodder in fire.
Yeah, right.
Ooh, the yin and the yang. But yeah, he's what a pro. He was like, no, okay, I'll still do that. Yeah, I know what not to do now. So,
and he said constantly like how much of a fan he was of these films and just horror in general. And so when he finally got the opportunity to play Jason, he was just like, throw everything you can at me, basically. Yeah. And I will do it. I will take it. Like, I want to make the best possible movie ever. Light me on fire for 40 seconds after I've already had a traumatic experience with fire. Like, what a man. I don't have that.
Yeah. It takes a certain kind to play Jason, apparently. Because between this guy and Tom Morga, good guy. Yeah. just
Tom.
Do whatever. I'm a bad little boy. Set me on fire.
Right. So yeah, Jason's full on monster now. He's on fire.
They had the house wired up to explode. Yeah. Because Jason ends up, because there's a gas leak now. Jason's on fire. And they had it to go like boom, 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 boom. And apparently, like, while they had it all set up, people were hanging around smoking because it was the 80s and whatever. But when they let it go, it just all went up at once. It was just like this woof. And so it was like much hotter than they anticipated. Some equipment got melted. So they only got like about like 20 seconds worth of film, or 20 frames worth of film.
20 frames.
Yeah, very little. But they had multiple cameras going. Yeah. So they were able to get some. But
I can't imagine being on set with the tension of doing like a giant explosion like that. And just like, we only have one shot at this, guys. You know? Yeah. I think it looks good. And looking for firsts in a franchise, I think that's the first explosion
Yeah.
And afraid of
other than, the mask explodes in one of the intros, but the first real explosion. Yeah.
And the RV sort of explodes, but this is like a house explosion type of thing.
But he's not done.
Yeah. Okay. So this ending, man, like this ending happened so fast that when I watched it last night, I was just like, wait, that's not how it really ends. Like I'm misremembering what I just saw. Like I thought there was more to this type of thing. So the explosion happens. Jason comes out of nowhere. Nick shoots him, but he's a full ghoul now. He just walks through. He pushes him onto the boat. Uses the force to bubble up the water, a little bit.
Yeah.
She then summons her father from the opening. Yeah. And he uses a chain to pull Jason down into the water. Cut to black.
Yeah.
We're done.
So, and there was a version of this that was cut where her father was more of a zombie like figure, like as the guy was in makeup and all this stuff, and apparently that didn't work. There was some like fight with the producer or something about it. I don't know, but like they ended up just going with this thing where like they just kind of mess up his face a bit, and so Big Nerd was very upset about that, but. It's not like it made more sense if he's a decaying body in there. So the cops just left him there. Like they just like, you know what, a dead body. Like that's fine. We're not going to worry about it. That sounds like your problem. I mean, it's clear cops don't like to do things, but like you're just going to leave this body in there, and like maybe the family wants to bury it. Nah, we got to just leave the body
for 10 years.
Yeah, apparently for 10 years. And so like if it's a ghost that she conscious, like even. And obviously they didn't have the technology to do this. If she somehow like brought up the water in the form of her father, which is dumb to say out loud, but that at least makes somewhat more sense than like, guess what? I'm still here. Blah, grabbed you. It's Pamela Voorhees coming up at the end of 3, where it's like, I don't know, how about this? Yeah. We'll tie it back to the trauma, wink. And
it doesn't quite cut to black as much, but like it might as well be that's the ending because
it's the next day and she gets put in the ambulance, and we actually have 2 survivors this time, a couple, not just like a brother and sister, but like which we did last time too. But again, another couple survives, and it kind of plays off of the 2 where she's like, where is he? And he's right there, just like right next to her. Then the guy, I do like the guy picks up the broken mask, and it's like, and I think that's actually the director.
That's the director. Yeah. And the firefighter.
And I do like that the mask is split. We're done. You know? And then they clearly didn't mean to be done, but I do like that as you could take A New Blood as it being this new hero or whatever, but it is like, well, this is done. Like whatever this Jason was, we're done with now.
Well, and then also they don't bother to do an eye opener.
Yes.
Like a shot underwater.
Yeah. It's like the end of 3 where they just went, goodbye, everybody.
Yep.
Which is it is interesting that you would do. I mean, it is the 7th movie, but that you're like, Jason's back. Now we killed him again. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
They definitely wanted to keep this going, so it's not like they were going to be like, no, this is the final one. They just wanted to keep as long as this thing was making money, even though the last one made less. Let's still do it.
Money.
Let's keep track. Yeah. These don't cost much. We'll make sure they don't cost much. We're not going to get Fellini involved.
So now we will go to the In Memoriam. John Shepard, played by John Otrin, drowned. Jane McDowell, played by Stacey Greason, stabbed in the back of the head. Michael Rogers, played by William Butler, stabbed in the neck. Dan Carter, played by Michael Schroeder, neck broken. Judy Williams, played by Deborah Kessler, slammed against a tree in a sleeping bag. Russell Bowen, played by Larry Cox, axe to the face. Sandra Casey, played by Heidi Kozak, drowned. Maddie Paulson, played by Diana Barrows, stabbed. Ben McNeil, played by Craig Thomas, head crushed. Kate Pataki, played by Diane Almeida, stabbed in the eye with a party horn. David Peabody, played by John Renfield, stabbed in the stomach. Eddie McCarlo, played by Jeff Bennett, stabbed in the neck. Robin Peterson, played by Elizabeth Cafton, pushed out of a window. Amanda Shepard, played by Susan Blue, impaled through the back. Dr. Christopher Cruz, played by Terry Kisser, weed whacker to the stomach. Melissa Power, played by Susan Sullivan, axe to the head, smashed against a wall. Yeah, that's part 7, The New Blood. And gosh, for what? Yeah, to sum it all up, I really feel like this is such a perfect example of, at this late in a franchise, don't we want something different? But no, don't give it to us different that way. Like, it's what fans do. And again, like, I think I would have been okay with this if it would have been like executed better. Really. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, some of that is the script, definitely. And, you know, I don't know that Buechner's like the greatest director, but there is the, like, what could have been. I feel bad, like, judging this movie. Like, if it had these other elements to it, this other stuff might have not have hurt so much.
Sure.
We've hit lower than this, but it's not great. It feels like the 7th in a franchise. We're like, okay, we're still doing this.
It is funny because I had the feeling while I was watching this, and I was just like a little bit bored, and I was just like, man, what is Children of the Corn Part 5 going to be like? You know, I was starting to think, man, our formula is going to involve a lot of pain, I think.
Yeah, because there is a little bit of me that wondered, like, well, is it just how close these are together? And possibly, but it's also just how much the same they are.
Yeah, that's
and it's that they're somehow getting, I mean, not somehow, but like, this is so uneven. Like, if they were getting progressively worse, there might be an excitement of like, oh God, like what's next? But because like we're 5 and then up with 6 and then this one it was just there. So I'm at the point where I need to feel something. This isn't doing it for me anymore. I got to put on nipple clamps to watch Manhattan.
Well, I was going to say, part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan is not going to be the one for you, bud. I'm
more interested out of anything else, because I know it's supposed to be bad. I just want to know how he gets from this lake to Manhattan. That's all I'm interested in. And I'm sure it's going to be very well thought through and well executed. Yeah,
we're about ready to do part 8, which means we only have a few more left in our Friday the 13th run here. So we got to start thinking about what our next series is. My goodness.
What's next? And
do we do slasher? Do we do something a little bit more elegant? If anybody wants to write in, by all means do so. Otherwise, we're just going to pick it and go for it.
And hopefully you'll listen regardless. But definitely give us some suggestions if you have something you've been dying to hear about.
Yep, please do. Especially if you want to hear how something goes from part 1 to part 7. Which is
you want to know how
the point.
You want to hurt us in different ways.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for Friday the 13th, part 7. We'll talk to you next week for part 8, when Jason Takes Manhattan. And that's great, because I'm going to New York next week.
Oh, cool.
Hey,
so you can get some you can ask the residents what it was like when Jason was there.
What was it like when Jason walked through Times Square?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and on Twitter at hurtabit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.